Alright, so we're going to make this braid here, and then I want to take it a step further, make it to where you can turn it into a 3-tone braid. So let's go ahead and start with the file new. Ring rail. Take that ring rail and surface extrude all, similar to solid extrude curve straight, but I don't believe you get the cap. Yeah, no cap option. So let's come to the looking down view here. Probably do it about 8 millimeters. Switch over to plastic. It's usually what I work in. And we're gonna use curve, create UV curve, and then select that ring rail. Now, still being in the looking down view, I want to center that. So we'll say utilities, center object, and we'll keep everything checked off here and say center. And move it up. Alright, so let's select these two and we'll put them on gray. I like to kind of hide everything. Pretty bad about that, hiding, turning everything on and off while I work, but for me it makes it easier to look at the specific thing you're trying to figure out. And actually, let me import this because I want to explain this a bit more. Whenever you're trying to figure out how to make either a twist or any kind of braid design, you need to figure out, first of all, it's usually going to be just a kind of a sine wave. So if you come from a looking down view, it's kind of tough to tell because this is going around a finger, but it does have a high point and a low point. Now the next thing is figuring out how you want that to look from a through finger, and we're laying this out so it makes it a bit harder to understand. But if you come about here, you notice this is the highest point, but this is the highest point from a through finger. So the lowest point is actually in between the middle. Anyway, I had to kind of play around with moving points around for a curve from two views, but I'll show you how to do that there. Alright, so we got our curve. Let me switch that over to creation layer. And I want to come over to curves, helix. We'll choose the round curve option. Notice you have the amount of turns here. I wouldn't worry about the rest. The main thing is deciding how many turns you want. And for me, 4 worked pretty good, so we'll stick with that, 4. And then another thing, this is gonna be the kind of the midpoint in between the braid. So whatever thickness or width each strand is gonna have, you need to stay away that much. So say we have a 1.75 thick, divide 1.75 in half, put your curve, and snap to that endpoint. Or speaking of endpoint, you can just say 1.6. We'll draw that there. And we're gonna say helix, round curve. It would be nice if it would notice that you have a curve selected, how most other tools work, but I guess not. So then we're gonna let's put some points on this curve. This is the high point, so we'll say let's draw a curve from the quadrant, our blank there. We're gonna bring that down. Alright, so we're gonna do an intersect now. Just typing that in. Big tip, try to get in the habit of typing things in. It just, for me, it made a huge difference, because whenever you start typing, you get familiar with other commands. So something I learned when I first started with this. I'm going to mirror midpoint, and then I want to draw a line from turn my point snap on. We're going to say point to point, and then we're going to do helix again around curve. And what we did is we added one, so we're going to say 4, 2, 5. Oh. Alright, to 6. Alright, so that is that there. And if you're doing a standard twist, now this is the same same kind of approach you would do. Is you would start with the helix. You could scale it and adjust it how you need, but that there is going to give you that twist look. And I'll just kind of give you an example real quick. If you bring that forward, let me right click and let's type in pipe. Yep, so same approach here. Only difference is we have a little bit more work to do to get the braid, but not as much as you think. Alright, so I want to take this and this. And we're going to come from a looking down view and type in project to C plane. Right click, let's say delete input equals yes. So now I'm left with this strand and this original. The reason why I left that original is because I'm going to use that to put my points out, but I don't want to interfere with the solid curve we have here, because then we're going to end up, when doing curve from two views, we'll end up with creases where that joins together. So, alright, our seams. Alright, so let's grab this one, come from a looking down view. We could turn off user 2 for now. And we're going to insert a point. So second drop down, point. I still have quad on. And I want to take that point there and use that to trim. So this is one high point, it's a low point. And we need to divide that, like I said, it's going to be divided into 3. Never tried it, but I assume you can come up with some strange things the more you divide these points here. I assume it'd be the same approach to get a 4-strand braid, but I haven't tried it out yet. Alright, so we're going to say user 1 and user 3. It's alternating, so I'm going to start with, just pick a color, really, doesn't matter. Red, blue, skipping over the high point. and the low point of each. So red, blue, red, blue. And we'll grab this here and we're going to copy from that to that, over to that, and just keep going down the line here. Alright, I'm going to keep copying. And of course missed something here. Alright, no problem. We'll just duplicate. It wouldn't hurt to add one more, and actually I might want to go a bit more than that, because we're going to use a tool called through points. So the more points you have, the nicer the end of that curve is going to be, and that way you don't notice any difference. Alright, just delete that duplicate there. And we're going to right click on red layer here and right click on blue, so we have both of those selected, and type in a command called set point. And what that does is it sets points to a construction plane. Now in this case we're going to use set Y and set Z, and we want to set that to F4. So like I said, we're using curve from two views, so main thing with that is you want to make sure it's actually from two views, so from looking down and from a through finger in this case. And let's come back to that through finger. We're gonna right click on red. Now this is gonna be the lowest point of the braid. So I'll just bring that in real quick. That's gonna be this here, the lowest point. So you don't want to go too thin, and I actually had to do some splitting, kind of help out with that. And I just went with 1 millimeter. That way it's easy math figuring out half of that. And then for the high point, say 1.8. Delete this curve we got here. I'm gonna right click and select those again, and then let's come over to this one, through point. Make sure it's 3. Everything else should be pretty standard, and that's how that should look. Now whenever you select both of those, you're going to come over to curve from two views, and it's kind of neat. If you come from a side view, it should look like a figure 8. Oh, looks like I kind of lost it there, and that is why, and that's what I was talking about earlier, is not having enough pass. So where this would normally be making that curve back over to meet down to this point, now it's straight, so that's what messed us up there. Let's go ahead and select. We're going to say duplicate from this point to this one. That's that one. Select both, and one more time, curve from two views. Oh, nope. Try again. Through point, and right click. So now when we come and select both of those, you should get a nice figure 8 from the side view, and that's kind of a good good way to check to make sure you brought those points far enough. And you can see here we got perfect figure 8. And it should look like that. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of these points and lines that we're not using now. Neat thing before I go any further is if you have history on, if we come over here, right click on blue and raise that up, well, let me go ahead and run it one more time. Okay, so right click on blue. Yeah, so that's pretty neat. You can adjust the height. You can also come in here and scale this. So if you want kind of a tighter braid, that's where you do that. And then I'm going to take this and pipe it. Let's kind of bring it back to where it was before though. Alright. So when I pipe this, remember that size when I was drawing that curve here. Let's see, I believe it was, I'll just get a dimension on that. Or we'll draw a line from this quad, say both sides, hold shift, and we should be able to type in length. Oh, bad snap. Alright, so looking down, we'll just project it to the C plane, say delete equals yes, and then type in length. So 1.6, that's what it was. Now we'll come here and we're going to say pipe. Want to make sure you have diameter on. So to toggle that, you just click radius, start diameter 1.6. Alright, so I'm selecting that pipe and that one curve in the middle just to kind of isolate this. The reason why I'm using the pipe is to get some curves on the outside. Pipe is a good way of doing that. If you try and sweep this like it is, chances are it's not going to sweep good, and you'll have to add a ton of profiles on here to get it to work properly. So I found just piping it and then coming over to extract ISO curve. We'll toggle that. I just did the two quads, and then we'll delete the pipe, select the three curves, and come over to surface, loft, and say OK. So we'll check that from side, make sure it still has that figure 8. Alright. Let's say transform. I feel like this may be a bit too tight of a braid. I want to see something here. If we come and just scale that. Now we'll keep it. And let's just see what that looks like. It's going to be a very loose braid here. So we'll go from point to point. See how I keep getting those bad snaps there? You can either just come in this view and snap to that bottom curve, or you can turn on this project here, and that always puts any points that you try and put out on a curve when you snap something onto the construction plane, so it projects it at all times. But Should be good. And then we're going to divide this by 3. Right. And I wanna copy this from, we're gonna start with this point and we'll just copy to the next 3 in the row. You can see that's a nice braid right there. Looks pretty good. Main reason why I went past the outside of that is I want to use that. I want to be able to trim this without having to copy over. So if we didn't come past that object so much, then we would have never gotten one single strand here that meets up in the middle. And especially for the splitting and stuff we need to do next, that's definitely going to be a handy tip there. All right, I might just scale that in a bit. Let me just right click on hide. I want to select all these curves just to get rid of all the clutter I have. I have job bag. I shouldn't need any of that anymore. And then we'll hit show. So of course we're gonna have the 3 different colors here. So we'll just start with that. We'll switch those over. That way we know what's going on. And then I want to trim the end of that on all 3 strands. Nope, actually I do not. Alright. This is all trial and error. We're going to say curve, duplicate border, and we'll come from a looking down view and project that to the C plane. Say delete equals no. I don't want to delete. I'm going to come to perspective. We'll select the top and the bottom curve here and loft between them. If you try and loft, then you get something undesirable. Best thing to do is just draw a straight curve and do a 2 route sweep between the 2 curves, but in this case it works, so we'll stick with that. And we can even select, even just copy this over, no need to loft 3 times. So we'll say in, do that. Alright. And it looks like I scaled this up at some point. Didn't quite catch that. And it should be fine. I'll stick with it. Or if anything, we can come from a through finger. And if we sub-select the top of this, being it's a straight extrude, so I'm holding Control Shift and just windowing over. Like I said, I wouldn't do this for anything just because I know it's a simple surface that'll work. Alright, that'll work. Alright, so now for the fun part. splitting this up. What I did is I kept my green as a single curve, and then we believe the metal 2, I transferred it down. Let's see, yeah, see that's a bit of a problem too because I scaled that. It's still pretty close to 1, but I want to make sure, so I'll come in here. Where's that snap? Quad, and we'll bring that, and then put a dimension. Alright. So again, green is going to be the solid one that goes all the way around, and the second one here, I want to, let's see, okay, yeah, let's switch this one over, this one, and then we'll go ahead and select both of these. Nope, just this one and this one. Right click on hide, and we're going to attempt to boolean. Before we do that, we obviously need to cap this off, and let's try typing in cap, because that bottom should be planar and this should be closed whenever you do that loft. And we'll do it for the last one here. Cap. Alright, so let's click on that arrow and we'll say -0.6. Now let's do 0.5. So -0.5. And we're going to do a Boolean difference. So solid Boolean difference from the main green one using this one. I have delete input equals no. I don't want to get rid of it. And then we'll click on that arrow and let's type 0.5 instead of -0.5. Bring that back up. So we now have a cut from the main one, but now I want to cut this one with the main one. So Boolean difference, or subtracting from this one using this one. Cool. Does that work? And that's why I didn't add any fillets to this before doing my booleans, because chances are it's not going to work as perfect as that. Okay, so that's that. Next thing, we're going to make this, it's going to be the solid, the single sections here. And let's do the same how we did here. So you have half and half. So we'll take this and we'll say extrude. This one needs to go down. So -0.5. We're going to Boolean difference from this using this. And we'll select and say 0.5 now. And then same thing, Boolean difference from this using this. Alright, now we need to split this guy up, because we can't have anything in this section here. That's going to be that one solid bottom section. Oh, actually, we're going to split this one at this section. All right. So let's say probably want to move it down first. Anytime you have that coexisting surface like that, it tends to cause issues because the Boolean operation doesn't know what's the inside and outside at that point. So now Boolean difference, we're cutting that with this. I might just keep it offset down like it is. And then we'll actually grab these and pull them up just a hair. Okay. Now I know I'm doing this on all sections, but you really just need one. So really just need, well, two in this case. And then we're gonna, so this is gonna be the solid one. So we'll select this curve. We'll say trim and trim. And we'll keep that open. That way, like I said, it joins up at the bottom. That's gonna be the solid one. And then we have, we'll get rid of that one since it's outside. This one. And just two of those will work. Alright. I'm going to right click and hide. Alright. Trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing here. So I got this curve drawn out. I'll put that on red. Put this in wireframe. And then we're going to have one at this midpoint to the next one. So midpoint, midpoint. If you hold shift on a straight curve, we're gonna make a plane with that to use to split this guy up. Alright, I'm gonna bring that down. And let's go ahead and copy it over because we do need two solid sections here. So duplicate, and I'm just snapping to this point. Say to this one, should be right. We'll select two. And if you use Gumball, pull that up. We're going to hold control, and that's going to extrude it. And we want to use this as a Boolean. So to make a single surface a poly surface, you need to type in offset surface. Offset surface. We have both sides equal to yes, which we do want that because we want to create a small bit of separation between that. We're going to say solid equals yes, both sides, and distance. Let's go with maybe 0.06 divided by 2, so 0.03, and then right click. I chose that because that's I find that works pretty good when you do offsets and booleans for things that assemble. So I guess it's the golden number. I'm gonna delete. Alright, so we got one of these, and that solid green line. We'll delete these curves. We're going to select this outline border. We're going to come to planar curves. Now you can add fillets if you want at this point, but I want to do the green section as gems, and anytime you're flowing gems, you want to make sure those gems, the girdles of the gems, are real close to that surface, or it's going to cause a bit of distortion. It's just how the math of flowing one object to the next works. So we'll do that after it's flowed. We'll select them here. We're going to come over to transform, flow along surface, base surface here near one corner, target. And at this point, we should be able to get rid of that. I'll get rid of that. Come from a through finger. Okay, so that needs to be arrayed 4 times. So does this. So we'll say array polar. Center is going to be F4. Number is going to be 4. And right click. Alright. So that worked there. Alright. Now, for getting gems on here, we can use extract ISO curve and just place gems that way. But I want to create a bit of an offset on this surface. So I'll do that real quick, and then we should be just about done here. Solid. We're going to extract this surface. Then I want to come over to curves, duplicate border, and then there's a command called offset curve on surface. So we'll select that surface. Make sure the arrows are facing right. And let's say we want to maybe a 0.5 wall, maybe a little bit less. 0.3. Alright, that looks good. I will say split. Okay, yeah. Split this with this curve now. And then let's do this one more time. Offset curve on surface. We'll select the surface and we'll just keep that same number. And we're going to take this and we're going to select it, say trim with it selected, trim out that outside. Select that surface and say offset surface. Say flip. That distance is going to be 0.4. Alright, I'm going to say flip. Solid equals no. Don't want both sides, but that's fine. And then I'm going to delete this here. Now, if I duplicate border on that, select that curve, that should still be there. Let's go ahead and loft between them. Oh. Like I was saying earlier, that's at that point, that's when you would, let's turn off that, that's when you would do a 2-rail sweep. So end to end, might even add one more here. I'm going to say sweep 2. And let's choose closed sweep, preview, and okay. Alright. And let's go ahead and get this guy wrapped up. I say extract. Oh, extract ISO curve. Toggle. And say F6. Gem on curve. Obviously, want to bring the height of that. Let's say QLit direction equals object. Not sure if that's actual its own size, but and I actually should have brought the height down, but no problem. Prongs, guys get the concept. Go ahead and group that. I might even just do this every other one here. And we'll say array polar center and 4. I'll switch this guy over to user 1. And that should be it. Obviously need to add some fillets, but all in all, I think we got it here.